Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, friends, colleagues, listeners, and anybody who's fresh on this aviation podcast scene. As always, we try and bring characters of the industry and leaders onto the show. And today, a great example. And for those of you who think I'm smiling, yes, I am, because something unique has just happened, which I shan't forget. However, we'll come to that. And I'd like to welcome Graham Williamson, President of ACASS Ireland. Graham, thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, Chris. Good to see you. Thanks for the invitation.
Yeah, it's an absolute pleasure. I've got to let people know why I'm smiling so much. We were just talking before the show and managed to convince Graham to sing a few lines of King of the Road, and it was superb. And it's made my day, Graham.
Well, I'm pleased it made your day, and
it's made my day, mate. King of the Road.
Present to you.
Thank you so much. So, welcoming the King of the Road on to talk about the air is a great one. So, can you just let everybody know a little bit about yourself and what your current responsibilities are?
Okay, so I'm the president of ACASS Ireland. We're an aircraft management charter business based here in Shannon, in the west of Ireland. We're in partnership with the ACASS Group. So I run this European division, and then the ACASS Group. What we tried to do is to build something that connects all the various elements of the business aviation product. So ACASS is specialist in aircraft sales and acquisition. They have a crew hiring business. They have other AOCs globally. So we sort of fit in and provide that total bandwidth almost. So we can acquire an aircraft, we can manage it, we can operate it, we can maintain it, and ultimately we can sell it.
Okay. So basically A to Z. And we should also mention Sonos as well at the moment. So if you can let people know, how Sonos and ACASS, how it's come to be.
Okay, so when we first started the project, the original name was Sonos Aviation. Sonos is the Irish Gaelic word for happiness. And that was so it was Happiness Aviation. But that was a working title. The relationship with ACASS started at the beginning. So it was always our intention to come together using the brand and work in partnership, because it obviously gives us a lot more bandwidth for both parties. So, and we're very proud to be part of the ACASS brand.
Brilliant. And then the obvious question, for many, not for myself, because my father was from West Cork, but why Ireland and why on the West Coast?
Well, first of all, why Ireland? I'll reverse that if I may. The West Coast is because when you come to Ireland, you can live in Dublin, which is where we looked at first. And then I looked at house prices in Dublin and salaries in Dublin. And then realised that when you're setting up a global operation focused on Europe, then where your core management team is, that's airworthiness, flight operations, etc., can be located anywhere. Our aircraft are going to be based in London, in Paris, in Geneva, in Moscow. But where we build our centre could be anywhere. The west of Ireland is, if you can create, and one of my ambitions, if we can create high value, high quality jobs in Clare, in the west of Ireland, we will attract the best people because it's a glorious place to live.
Yeah, it is indeed. And Shannon, a great airport. I did my weight and balance checkouts in Shannon with Lufthansa many years ago, and great memories. Dirty Nellies, Fibber McGee's.
Exactly, Dirty Nellies is legendary in aviation. A lot of Shannon Airport and the Shannon Group have been really supportive, and there's a lot of investment in the west of Ireland from the Irish government. We have the free zone. Our offices are at the airport in the free zone. And there are large corporates coming in now, so there's a lot of investment, and we're glad to be a small part of that.
And obviously, as the UK finally crosses the Brexit line, it allows you to maintain the European connections, which is also a very big positive.
Exactly. So I was obviously based in the UK prior to starting this venture, and we were working for a very successful management company, one of the largest, and we were really looking. I'm on the board of EBAA, and I was at a meeting in the press club in Brussels about 3.5 years ago, and everybody was discussing Brexit, and the consensus amongst most people was it's just not going to happen. And then subsequently, when it sort of did happen, well, nothing will change. Well, the reality is, I knew then and I know now that things are going to change quite radically for aviation in Europe. Obviously, COVID has been a distraction, but the hard date is still coming. And so step one is I wanted to create my own bespoke management company to look after known clients. Step two is where in Europe, because it can't be the UK. Then step three was, and I did look at other jurisdictions, but Ireland really, apart from the fact that my father's from Ireland and I have a passion for Ireland, equally, it's in the EU. It will always be in the EU. It transacts in English. It's English law, English language, and has a great heritage for aviation. So we're very proud to, to have set up here, and we made the right call.
No, brilliant. And for me, it's you can't get a better place to be. But I think all the reasons behind the selection make sense, and good luck to you. Now, I also seen that you put a post on about the two aircraft, the two Challengers based in Farnborough.
Yep.
So they're ready to go. They
are up and running. They're flying. Well, in fact, we had a trip today, but we couldn't get the permits. We talk about COVID later, perhaps, but that trip's going to be postponed till next week. We're going to Ghana on Thursday, tomorrow, on one of them. We've done quite a lot of charter. Considering the impact of COVID and the uncertainty, where we are at the moment is we're finding a lot of new potential customers who never used business aviation before.
Yeah, exactly, and we'll come to that. Now, previously you were with Tag Aviation, and you increased the fleet from 10 to 90. Now, you're just saying that previously you weren't seeing the types of people who are knocking on the door and making the calls. Are you seeing now a genuine, and you think a more permanent new breed of customer?
I think there's certainly, in terms of, I think there's two separate elements. There's the aircraft management, and people think that this is, the exposure to most people of business aviation is this perception of it's a leisure device that's used by high net worth. The reality is most of our customers and most of Tag's customers are corporates. It's a business tool. It's an extremely expensive plumber's van. It is something you need to do your job. And most of those clients do not need or don't want other people on their aircraft.
Yeah.
So that it is purely for the corporation to use to move its executives and its customers around the world. Then there are those aircraft and there are operators, who provide charter, in other words, a rental solution. People that don't own, who don't have the frequency. So that is changing. And I think in the medium term, well, first of all, in the short term, COVID has changed everything about aviation, as we know. There's a lot of repatriation flying. There's a lot of essential flying. I mean, business aviation, we do 70 air ambulance flights a day in Europe. So we're providing a necessary service. But I think long term, and this is just my own view, that the next generation of customers in the more of the private segment, as opposed to the corporates, tend to be more interested in renting than owning.
Yeah.
I think our generation are very much, bricks and mortar and own, whereas my son's generation is, well, I wouldn't want to buy a boat, an aircraft, or I can rent it. Airbnb for aviation.
Yeah, that's my thoughts as well. Now, you touched on some areas there. What we're trying to do is we're trying to give a different light to people who are listening, and especially it's far too easy and it's practiced so often in the media. Overnight success, and they go from luxury to luxury, and they sort of damn success or be negative about it. And especially now at the moment where people are being displaced from their livelihoods through no fault of their own. it just goes to show that the way certain businesses were being run and the tight margins, that you can't last for a long period. So the business continuity is so important. And if anything, like you said, businesses and corporate users of private jets, they do it because it's more efficient, it's more confidential. They can gain anything from 30, 35 to 50 extra days a year.
Yeah.
They can save time, it's more convenient, all those positive things that people don't see. And if they're successful doing that and it ripples out, it's going to mean more jobs, more values for everybody else. And the other thing is all of those ancillary services that go around any aircraft that lands and takes off provides jobs and a good livelihood for people. So if anything, everybody in the entire aviation network should see it as all parts, relevant parts of a bigger puzzle, and be positive about it.
Absolutely. I mean, picking up on a couple of those things. First of all, business aviation directly employs 370,000 people in Europe. That's a fact. It contributes 90 billion euros to the European economy. It's interesting. I always joke with people, that we're not in the market of just, it's not a little niche thing. We're a major industry. I'm on the European Business Aviation Association, who represent 800 operators across Europe. Their website has got lots of really powerful information about what we do. And a couple of other things to add is that business aviation is at the cutting edge of technology. So it is the manufacturers, it's Gulfstream, Dassault, Bombardier, they're building into their aircraft the things that, and all to space exploration, supersonic, but what is in our aircraft today goes into, it's a bit like Formula One.
Yeah.
What in our aircraft today goes to everyone's aircraft tomorrow. Biofuels, the first electric, and I don't know, I'm not a techie, but I have heard that the first test bed or the first electric engine to go on a jet will be Gulfstream. And there are lots of innovations right now in terms of developing the technology. But going back to trying to explain what we do, we offer choice, and our clients are not arrogant. They're not. They will take scheduled services. They will when it's appropriate. But there are times, when people need to move quick and they need to move efficiently. And in the uncertain world we live in, particularly with recent events with COVID, there is no other choice. When you and I are in London, if you're with your family and taking your time, you jump on the tube. If you need to be somewhere in a hurry, you might get a taxi. If you've got a bit more time, you might use an Uber, which, and hopefully you'll find where you're going. But it's choice. And everything, the bus, the train, all of those methods of transport are appropriate at different times, including sometimes Uber Black or a limo.
Yeah.
So that's all we do. We offer choice.
Yeah. And that's a very good way of looking at it. And also with that choice now, people are considering their own risk assessment. And one of the issues that's is pretty well known now, and something that carriers and airports and everybody in the entire chain are looking at, is the number of touch points and people's emphasis and reliance now on consumer confidence around hygiene. And to think that it's 700 plus for a family on traditional carriers, and it's something on 30, 40 on private aviation. That's a big decision maker if you're in that position where you can have that choice.
Exactly. One of the, I think the value add in terms of what's probably the best example for me was we were asked for a charter for a mining company who have a dozen or so guys every month switch out between, it was actually from Ireland, from Dublin down to West Africa. Now, normally these guys, and they're essential workers, they're management for a big mine, they would go from Dublin to Heathrow or Paris, then connect with a scheduled service if they can, then fly down. And the first trip we did was 11 guys down and 9 guys back. The cost of that charter is about 70,000 euros. the cost of moving those guys on scheduled services, time and money, is not significantly less than that.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, the companies say, hang on a minute, this really works for us. Forget COVID. This makes practical sense because they didn't have to go to Heathrow. We went to. So people talk about the touch points in airports. The first thing is there's a lot more airports. Business aviation, there are, I think, 500-600 airports, maybe even less in Europe that are used by commercial airlines, maybe 400 or 500.
It's incredible. Well, I think for every commercial airport, there's 10 private airports in most areas. Exactly. And when you look at that, it's an incredible statistic.
I think in Europe, it's something like 6,000 additional city pairs are operated by business aviation compared to airlines. So in this case, the aircraft goes to where you are. You don't go to what's convenient for the airline. Step one. Step two is you don't go into a terminal. There is no terminal. You know, if you're flying at a Stansted or Farnborough or even here in Shannon, you go through, and it isn't a case of some special super VIP lounge. You'd normally go straight to the aircraft. You know, you just drive to the aircraft. Customs immigration need to be followed, so you might go through some form of screening, or would go through screening, but you go straight to the aircraft and go. On the aircraft, all the same rules apply to our segment as airlines. So our crew are all tested. We have all the PPE measures. Every time we fly, every single time, the aircraft is disinfected. You know, and that means it's sprayed and all the hard surfaces are cleaned. And then we seal the door. So when you open the door, you know that it's a sterile environment. Crew are tested, everyone wear masks, lots of different protocols in the cabin to protect the passengers and the crew. I can't afford to for the crew to be sick either. So it's constant. And then when you arrive, and if you have the benefit of flying from Shannon is if you say go to the States, you can even clear customs here.
Exactly. Yeah.
You arrive, customs and immigration tend to meet the aircraft. They process the passengers, and you get in a car and drive straight to where you're going from an airport of your choice. So there is a premium to be paid, but the benefits are extraordinary in terms of time saved and security, you know, and efficiency. So.
Yeah, no, I think it's it's something, and when you're talking there about the numbers of airports, and now I know you were saying about luxury, etc., but some of the FBOs now around the world are really now adding to the overall experience of the aircraft. So almost from when you're picked up from your home to whether you go for business or whether you go for leisure, it's a seamless now exercise that all practice the same exclusivity and hygiene.
Exactly, and most of the FBOs, because the volumes are lower, that the FBOs are able to create a comfortable environment and follow all of the guidelines and exceed the guidelines. So, I mean, in our segment, as an operator, if the passengers need to go into the FBO, we probably failed. We really want them to go straight to the aircraft. Time is of the essence. However, right. I know you had, I think you had Adele Mardini from JetX on.
Yes. Excellent example of that expectation and delivery.
And Adele's a personal friend and a great advocate of our industry, but also understands customer service and the bespoke nature of what we do, and has created some amazing FBOs among Signature and all the others. And so if the passengers, one of the things with the FBO often is that where it really adds value is either when people are coming from, as a hub, so different people coming together from different places to meet. And it's also very often, I know clients that will only go into the FBO. They'll have the meetings there.
Yep.
You'll fly to a country or to a city, you'll have your meetings in the FBO, so you never actually leave the airport and then fly home.
Yeah.
And the facility is always amazing.
No, it is. It's absolutely incredible. Now, you also mentioned earlier on when you said about the executives, it's an efficient means of what they have to do, and then your charter, hygiene, and new clientele, but also the repatriation and the support function that private aviation has given during this pandemic, which has been exceptional, and people don't hear about it often enough. The press very seldom reports on it. People themselves are happy to be doing the good things and caring, so they don't talk about it. But it's something that people should be more aware of, because it's an exceptional service.
It is, and it's also essential. You know, whenever there is a crisis, whatever that crisis is, that it tends to be that we're the first person, or our industry, the first people that you would call, because we can react instantly. And it's, you know, whether it was the tsunami in Japan, whether it was the Arab Spring and issues in North Africa, you know, if you run a business and you've got boots on the ground, you've got staff in a location, and you need to get to or from that location quickly to protect your staff and exercise your emergency response plans and things, then we can provide. And we don't just provide little jets. It's, you know, we can provide any aircraft. My previous life, we operated the Four Seasons, the round the world product for the Four Seasons, and you know, air cruising is a new market, I believe, that will grow. So that was a 757. We have access to 757, 76s. We can, you know, we're not just operators of aircraft. We are a charter company, so we will put you on other people's aircraft if it's appropriate. You know, one of the things I learned when I first, well, I have learned over 40 years, but my original boss at TAG, a chap called Rob Wells, he taught me very early, just always do the right thing, always give the right advice, and play the long game, and it will come back. It will go full circle. My first ever client meeting with Rob, we met a chap who and obviously, you know, he was doing okay, and he decided he was going to buy a jet, and he was going to do 100 hours a year, and then we would do 300 or 400 hours of charter, and we'd all make lots of money, and it would never depreciate. And Rob just looked him in the eye and said, "Look, buy a NetJets card. Do not buy a jet. You will regret it for the rest of your life." You know, so, but for some people it's an essential tool, but you've got to always give good advice. And I think the other thing for our industry, and it's the bit I love and the reason I started this adventure, is the fun is problem solving. It's when a client says, "I need this. I need to be in." I had another great client who had a global, might have been a 5,000 Global Express. Anyway, he phoned me on a Sunday morning at 10 o'clock from Chennai. No, he was somewhere else in India, and his aircraft was AOG, it was tech. And it was broken. So he just phoned me up 10 o'clock Sunday morning and said, "Graham, I need to be in Chennai in 3 hours. I'm opening a factory. The Minister of State will be there. The press will be there. The media will be there." And he phoned me because he knew I would just be able to say, "There will be an aircraft with you in 2 hours." There's no chain of command. There's no decision-making tree. It is one-to-one. The client phones me. I don't want his credit card details. We have a relationship. We solve the problem. We deal with it.
Yeah, which is great. I think what you've just said there, one of the things that we should also focus on is like your selection of aircraft and aircraft that you would allocate also has to go through a strict safety regime. And you know, so I've had a few chats about the Port Cardiff City footballer, you know, on that chartered aircraft, and you know, that makes people wonder. But there is a strict regime, and it's also important to go to the right broker and have the right aircraft and with the right history.
100%. Now, in terms of brokers, then I think brokers are not licensed, and that's not something I necessarily agree with.
Yeah,
the rest of the time, there is licensing. The Air Partners, the Hunt and Palmer, Auction 4, Air Charter Scotland, there are lots and lots of great brokers, many, I can't name them all. And they are go-to, they are always auditing and checking the quality of the operators they use. However, when it comes to choosing an operator, ask the right questions. And there's a simple question for every person watching this who ever charters an aircraft. Does the operator have a commercial AOC, Air Operator Certificate, and operating license for within Europe, an EASA license or an FAA license, or under a legitimate jurisdiction, because then the standard is the same whether you're flying on British Airways or ACASS.
Yeah.
We have exactly the same rules, airworthiness requirements, and it's tough. I mean, it's a huge investment in time, but it's infinitely worth it.
100%, 100%, and that's where your own AOC with the Type A operating license. That's where it's so important with what you're doing in Ireland. So,
and also, and again, I think, I mean, we're the national authority under, so EASA, the European Aviation Safety Authority, is the European governing umbrella. The national authority and under the Irish Aviation Authority, the IAA, have been fantastic. I mean, they're lots of experience, but they're very much, we work in partnership. So, and they've we have our AOC, that's with their blessing, but they weren't easy.
Yeah, exactly.
They're very, very thorough and very, very, and it's not a one. This isn't. Aviation changed in the last 20 or 30 years from being, we now have what's called performance-based oversight. The IAA don't come and see us once a year or twice a year. We talk to them every day. They know what we're doing. They ask questions. We tell them. It's a relationship, and they are providing oversight, but the responsibility is with the owner, with the operator. When I first started in aviation, you'd get an audit by the national authority, and I've done AOCs in Hong Kong, in India, in the Middle East, and obviously in Europe. And it was like an inspection once or twice a year.
Yeah.
Under EASA and ICAO, the responsibility rests with the accountable management team of the airline. I'm the accountable manager for our operation. It is my responsibility, and the buck stops with me.
And that's a great point there, because people don't appreciate the difference between accountability and responsibility.
Totally.
Whoever owns it and acts on it and is responsible for it is the accountable party, and you can't delegate that. Completely. And I like the performance-based oversight, because they also have the opportunity to see what's trending and what's possibly challenging and what's certain risks. And by that regular communication, it's keeping you all on your toes, keeping you all updated. And I think it's a great way to to do things.
We work as an industry, and through EBAA, the BBGA, and all the various elements. One of the things that's really important for me from when I joined this, and I was an airline guy originally, so when I came into this segment 15, 20 years ago, it's very fragmented. There are not many large operators. So there are probably three. I mean, UK's got 110 AOCs. There's probably about 400 or 500 in Europe, fixed wing AOCs. 800 in Europe, of which for business aviation there are many operators with 4 or 5 aircraft or less.
Yeah.
One of the things I try to do, and we're still championing, is to try and share information.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Is trend monitoring. You're right. We're legally required. We do FDM. That's flight data monitoring, which is really based on an airline concept of and you're so right. It is all about predicting, not reacting. So we do trend monitoring. But if I've got 2 challenges, but a friend of mine with another operator's got 6 challenges, and another guy I know has got 10, between us we've got meaningful data.
Exactly.
We're trying to work together. We created a thing called CASE some years ago, the Corporate Aviation Safety Executive, and I really want to re-energize that kind of thing, because it's so important. Now, clearly with the OEMs, the manufacturers, we work with Bombardier with the challenges, so they do our performance engine trend monitoring. But you also want to share safety occurrence reporting and just make sure that that we provide the highest possible or exceed the standards in terms of safety, which I'm pleased to say I can sleep easy knowing we do.
Yeah, and that sort of promotion and advisory, and I think it's so important now that people are starting to look at other areas, because it's very easy to put things off with, like I said, the Cardiff City footballer situation and some others. But more industry insiders are aware of than anybody else.
We're doing a lot of work on what's called grey charter. People need to be aware that if you book a charter through a legitimate broker or operator with a license, with operating license, then you are completely, you can, you know the standard is the same as getting on a BA flight. That everything is to the highest possible standard, and the record for our industry is exceptional in terms of safety. But if in that case, if it's too good to be true, if it's cheap, if it's you just got to question that should never happen. And it's important for us as an industry to ensure that we report and track aircraft that are operating outside of, not that there are many, but they're operating outside of the commercial requirements for commercial charter.
Exactly. It's important, so important for everybody. Now that gives us a nice segue into a point. We're very positive and promoting private aviation, but we're not doing it at the cost of just regular aviation, because that's also very safe as well. I think the point I'm trying to make is that once you get on that aircraft, you're as safe can be, and even with the airflow and HEPA systems, etc., it's incredible. I think what has to happen now overall in aviation is the whole airport, the whole ecosystem has to be doing things the same, so that consumers get confident that everything is right. Because as soon as you see one airport doing something, or one airline doing something, or one service provider doing something, or check-in is different, it makes people think, well, why? And this consistency and collaboration at this particular moment in time is so important. And the thing that's beginning to niggle me now is this ethical competition. Somebody coming up with something trendy and saying, well, we do this, instead of saying, this is a great idea, everybody should be doing it, and the whole community doing things together, so that it makes people confident, because there are so many things that rely on people flying, not just jobs. And without that, we'd all be in a much worse situation than we are now. Completely
agree. And I do think that the EASA have tried the guidance, to all aviation, the whole aviation community from EASA is relatively straightforward. There's a thing called the charter, which we completed the charter last week, which is basically a 16-page questionnaire of how you're dealing with COVID in terms of not just passenger handling, but staff handling, every element of it. They came from EASA. And if you can tick all the boxes and say, yeah, we've done that, and this is how we do it. So it's not just you have to demonstrate compliance, then you sign up to the charter. And I think, so they are trying to create harmonization of approach in the aviation community. But as you say, the other side of that coin is that each state and country, it changes every day.
Yep.
We did a charter to Riyadh last week. And 4 hours before the charter, Saudi Arabia shut. They said, no, we're closed again.
Yep.
Cancelled. And it's now. Don't get me wrong. I think I understand that the challenges the governments face in terms of trying to balance. But let's be honest, their primary objective is to get re-elected, rather than necessarily take control of the situation. And it is a very inconsistent message, including the UK.
Yeah, I think one of the things there you just mentioned, and I've lived in Saudi for the last 6 and a bit years, and more recently in Riyadh. But the thing that I'm finding is, as soon as somebody makes a statement, then they give people options, alternatives, and they start referring to common sense and your own measured approach to this should be taken. As soon as that happens, it confuses people, and it doesn't matter where people are. I think one of the things that's necessary now is you give a clear set of directives, you give a clear set of data measurement, and if the data shows that something has to happen, well, yourself that's what's going to happen, and it should make them people practice the better and the safer options, rather than hope that there won't be another spike, and then, oh my God, if there is a spike, look what happens. And I think if people are very clear as to what will happen if you go through a red light, if you'll come up to an amber light, if you go speeding. Everybody knows that. And the one thing I think people should be doing is they should have access to that data straight away. So if you and me are going for a picnic, or we're going on holiday, or we're going for a game of golf or whatever, first thing you do is you look at your phone for the weather. And if it's going to be pouring down with rain, you decide, well, I think it's probably best not to go. That's the sort of ready-made information that should be available. And in the instance of Riyadh, if they see that there are certain spikes, and the one thing that they will do, they'll introduce a curfew, they'll be tough, you know, there's all sorts of strict areas, because they won't want to take that risk.
Totally.
Now, obviously, it's a different approach.
It's good that our industry, I mean, I think because we are more nimble, shall we say, that we can often find solutions where it's not possible to find a solution in commercial, in airlines.
Yes. Yeah.
But equally, so I think we can add value there. But I do think you're right that I would say at the moment, the biggest threat to the airline business, to the airline industry, is people are just uncertain and therefore just opt to stay at home.
Yeah.
And that's why we're seeing so many people losing their jobs, because this is not a short term. People are now saying, well, I might go on holiday again in 2022.
Yeah.
Not next year. You know, this is no longer a short term crisis. This is a change of behaviour. But as you mentioned, people have to travel.
They do indeed. And I think one of the outcomes and one of the beneficiaries is companies like Halfords, and my old friend Keith Jones must be doing so well with all of his bikes and tents and everything. So, you know,
Absolutely.
people are changing the way they look at things, and it's going to be several years. Now, before we stray off, I just want to touch base on some of your services. So if we go through some of the things that you specialise in, like aircraft support.
Yeah, so, well, as I mentioned, if the simplest way to look at it is that we can provide pretty much anything and everything you need relating to business aviation. So within the ACASS group. So if you are a first-time buyer, or you want to upgrade your aircraft, or you want some advice on whether to buy an aircraft and what kind, we can help.
Yep.
If you then make that selection and you've narrowed it down to, I'm going to buy a Challenger 605, and there are 10 available, then we'll help you to get the best price. Then we'll help you with the inspection of the aircraft, the PPI, the pre-purchase inspection, the delivery, the input. Then we will also work with, we're not lawyers, so the tax advice, you need to get your own person to do that. We know people can help, but in terms of tax and importation, we can help that process. We'll deliver the aircraft. We'll then crew the aircraft. We provide all the oversight for the airworthiness, the camo function. If you want charter, we'll do that. We'll arrange every trip. That's every permit, every landing permit. We then do all of the purchasing on your behalf, because it's all consolidated with the operator. And then ultimately, in 3 or 5 years' time, when you need a new aircraft or you want to upgrade, we start the cycle all again.
Yeah, very good.
It is a one-stop shop, but it is important because we're not alone in that. We're not huge. You know, I've worked in previous companies in different stages of the revolutions, and many of them, all of them have been wonderful experiences. But in every business I've ever worked for, there's a sweet spot. When the startup phase is exciting and fantastic, then there's a sweet spot when it's after a certain period of time, everything's really humming, everything's going great. You're still small enough to have control. You still have great relationships. And then there comes a point when eventually the company, I won't name any of the companies, the entire board of the company are chartered accountants, and the HR departments are whole floor of the building. That's the time to leave. And that's been my track record. So,
I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying. And it's all then about margins and continuity, which is hugely important.
And those companies have gone on to. I was at Emirates right at the beginning.
Yeah.
With the aircraft. You could have put the entire workforce of Emirates into one room. Well, we did. We were in one room virtually. Did I think it was going to succeed? Yeah, probably. It'd be all right. but I decided to move on after a couple of years, and it's I love the startup phase, but I love that there is a sweet spot in everything you do. There's the pendulum swings. Very often it swings from one extreme to the other.
Yeah.
You can stop it in the middle when things are just right, Goldilocks style, and that's what I'm trying to achieve. Not too many aircraft, not too few. You need economies of scale, but you've got to keep it personal. You don't want to overextend the quality of the service by having 100 aircraft.
Yeah, yeah.
I want to know every owner or every the point of contact, and I want to know all the crew, and I want to know all the staff, and I want them to know me. And I can't do that if you're too big, but I want to pay their mortgages and protect their jobs and give them security. So I need to have a certain scale. That's the ambition, and the only ambition.
And I think, I mean, I'm fair play to you, Graham, because you've identified what you want to do and how and why. I think, there's companies that do get big and do get better, whichever way you define better, like Emirates, great outfit. But it's also about having different types of people for different scenarios and for different reasons. So it's a little bit like, relationships and marriages.
Yeah.
Otherwise we'd all be marrying the same man or the same woman and or the same person, and everything would be the same. So that variety, as long as it still maintains its purpose and its culture and its definition and its real solid DNA, that's what gives people such great selections and choices. And just finishing off now, so you've got clear aircraft support, you do the ferry and delivery, entry into service, and the technical consultancy. So you also cover from A to Z, and you're available for anybody coming into the business who wants to either try or would like to purchase an aircraft. I've got a colleague now, a friend, and he's very successful at business, and he's been looking at what's going on, and he now wants to buy an aircraft.
Well, as I said at the beginning, Chris, a conversation costs nothing, and I'm very happy to share my experience and the team's experience, and we may be the right choice, we may not. It is essential that people enjoy, get the right advice, and my phone, I'm always available, and as I say, if we're the right fit, if the operation, if you come to us for management, for charter, but let's primarily, if your friend buys a jet, we can hold his hand through the whole process, including operating it, crewing it, and then the day-to-day running. But it will depend on where he lives. It depends on what he needs. It depends on the aircraft. There's a great friend of mine who had a great product, which is to buy an aircraft, and there are 167 business jets available types, and his product was you just keep answering questions. Question 1, you want to buy a jet. Question 2, how many seats? Question 3, what's the range? Question 4, how much have you got to spend? And eventually it boils down. You'll know the guy, Steve Asano at the jet business.
Yes.
Well, his app is amazing because eventually it boils down and down and down until that's what you need.
Yep.
And it's almost that philosophy. I am always worried when a client says, hey, I've just bought an aircraft, I'm looking for a management company. That's not a good start. I would rather, thinking of buying an aircraft, what do I need to do? And it may not be me, but get good advice is the key.
Yeah, no, that's what I've told him, and also have just like you do in any tender process, have a minimum of 3, see what it is you like, what's the speciality you're looking for, and then you go with good data decision making, and also how you feel as well, and a good look at what the risk assessment is like, all the preventive maintenance across business, not just the technical side, and then you make your decision. But ironically, Graham, and this brings us to the end of the podcast, one of the criteria he's looking for is somebody who's able to sing from the Rat Pack, the Rat Pack era, and anybody who's able to sing King of the Road has got a great chance of selling this aircraft. Would you know someone?
I could probably. I mean, you mentioned this at the beginning, and I did say that this was a personal performance just for you. I might give you a couple of bars, but I'm not sure it's consistent with my status as the president So,
Graham, your status as the president, this will boost it no end, my friend, because anybody who's got a natural talent and the willingness to share it is incredibly successful. I would give anything. I would sing every single time I spoke to somebody if I could.
Yeah, the scene president. Okay.
Ready?
Up 3, 1, 2, 3. Trailer for sale or rent. Room to let 50 cents. No phone, no pool, no pets. I ain't got no cigarettes, but 2 hours of pushing room buys an 8 by 12 4-bedroom. I'm a man, that means by no means king of the road.
Superb, my friend, superb. Maybe king of the road and definitely president of ACASS Ireland and the owner of Happiness Aviation. So fair play to you, my friend.
And I have no idea how you persuaded me to do that. And yeah, let's see what the fallout will be.
There'll be no fallout. I'm telling you, that's one of the best endings I've ever had to a podcast, if not the best.
Cool.
Thank you so much, Graham. Really appreciated talking to you and look forward to having a pint of the black stuff with you. Definitely. And continued success and some lovely points you've given. Also some solid advice. Really appreciate it. Fair play to you. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Chris. Take care.